The story begins. My pet rabbit, dead in his hutch, face a cage for a last grimace, stiff goodbye. My mother lied, it isn't a long sleep. Those eyes are pink bins emptied of dreams. Legs still clutch black space, the bogeyman brightened. After that, I dreamed for us both. My mother tells me her mother's death. Finding her there in the morning, sun abrupt on the bedclothes, a thin breeze sang against the white sheets, gave notice of June, the immaculate face, unintricate glance, would not acknowledge. Not her mother's face, full of its speechless pain, but a fresh one sprung over the bones of the one she knew, porcelain, unveined as china the slightest breath would wake. It was like, she said, those baby photos retouched to make them more real. For a moment I was glad this face was not my mother's, but then I whispered her name, and in the silence that followed I knew, and I longed and I prayed for the bright speech of her pain. Then I looked through the blue space of her eyes, and I saw there was no news of heaven, no ending to the story I thought we'd begun. Canatara. Canatara, my first beach, limb-strewn boys under summer sun, wind supple on the dunes we loved with our skin touch. Huron held our bodies, cold, contained islands. Diving in, the first shock strikes a thread of warmth that was our innocence. We feel the small heat of our blood rebuke the lake, respond. On windy days the undertow was a hand pulling invisibly below all currents we had known till then, would be our thin and indivisible link to the sea. Coming home, along the CN tracks, our footprints sizzled on the summer ties, up ahead where rails were linked iron and sunlight bled. The evening in the village waited. Halving. When we were small, my grandmother would gather the snow apples in her brown hands, veins branching, blood dark in them, and carefully cut one in two perfect halves, skin slippery red, a few scars of undigested sun we never noticed, and the white flesh of snow juices sown and gathered out of winter and a kind of sleep. Those hemispheres of summer we tore at with our crooked teeth so willingly. On other days, when lightning split my afternoons, I cowered in bushes, heard thunder, rose from the worm-burrowed summer earth to the reverberating sky, and heard rain, prophetic in the eaves, come lashing down to grass, and heard worms on the flooded lawn, puffed and bloodless, thunderstruck veins of the cut earth. When my grandmother died and they put her in that tin coffin, the skin of her hands was smooth, her cheeks cosmetically red. The gravediggers had to break the snow-packed February earth apart with picks, and no summer dust to sprinkle on her kind of sleep. When my grandmother died, I waited for thunder in the earth, lightning from the sun. None came. Spring did, and autumn, and these days when I have to leave my own mother waving from her front window, more than one winter between us. Swallowing pride. The papers said they couldn't build a rink big enough to swallow his pride. My dad on skates and over ice that was ground, a gravity giving speed, a moving not of its own, but a boy on blades making wings out of legs, arms, the heart, swelling through every muscle, drew order out of energy, design from the chaos of the game. With a stick held like a brand, he burned the puck beyond the net, the circling boards, the crowd's containment, beyond the perfection of applause. He soared on wings the ice gave only to the young, and once, Icarus on blades, the world his rink. My dad now in this sleazy room, chest swollen with its cirrhotic liver, hands that held the hockey stick like a brand cling to a shaking cigarette. fumble with the yellowed news clippings he's dragged through God knows how many binges, withdrawals, beverage room boastings, talking to me about the slim kid he claims was him in these nicotine photos with the queer dates on them. Tells me he's going to die in 3 months and how great it's going to be when the Observer writes up his obituary, 3 columns, picture freshly engraved. And all the old-timers who weren't killed off in the war or didn't die of puffed livers will bear his coffin through the polite applause of those who remember, however dim, the young Icarus who spurned ice with his flaming blades, his wings of unending muscle. Sits there and grins at me with nicotine teeth, sits there and pretends to swallow the pride he hasn't had since that day when they finally built a rink big enough. Snowbound. Snowbound again, the blank verb of the universe, unwound. Outside the hedge cedars double under this weightless alabaster vise. Beyond the roadway reverts to river, bay, albino sea. In blanched degrees the eaves succumb to scroll and filigree, incorrigible curves. Inch by hour the porch is dwarfed. The house surrenders longitude, flattens toward sunset or dawn, dark or light. It doesn't matter when snows come man deep and more than 6 feet by 4. But the snow of my childhood tastes like apple flesh, feathers of the snow goose we free fall, do a slow motion crawl in. And no paths but those I carved between friendly yards, the distance quickened by sled and snowshoe, by the sheer curve of wishing. Diminished in my 2-globed igloo, albino blind, my dream is Arctic tall, or cast askance the seamless lake of lawn, field, swamp, the bay's edge against the westward climbing blizzard. My dream is Eskimo tiny, the child's dream of constant snow, the blank obliteration, the zero of a mouth proclaiming, "Oh." Soothsaying for Isabel MacDonald. And me just 8, a month out of 2nd grade, offering up my first story, something in your voice bequeathing trust. Original plot, Donald, and a fine ending, your soothing review. I was instantly old, the eldest sin upon me. I blush even now to admit that last flourish stolen from the grade 3 reader. My maiden soothsaying a lie, you straightened with praise that made a writer out of me. I never looked back till now, the decades gone. We exchange letters, compliments, your age deepening in you, though the hand is as bright as a new grade 3's. The trust as unaffected as when it was given without complicity. You do not say even now what I, too far to turn back, can guess. You knew the ending to every point and plot in the grade 3 reader. How long have you watched, bearing such knowledge, withheld full praise from a dozen hopefuls better than me? It was something between us in the unspokenness of things. Me 8 just once, and you fixed at grade 3 for 30 years. We have kept silence long enough. Let us think of the years, all the years, bridged with words.